Hello, welcome to Pride of South London Fan TV. Ali here, bringing you my preview of Crystal Palace away at Wolves. And hopefully you will enjoy it as much as Sir Alex Ferguson enjoys controlling the VAR room when Manchester United are playing. In a moment we will get into the VAR controversies, but we do obviously have a preview as well of the Wolves game. But I am going to start with a bit of a reflection of that game in which Crystal Palace lost 2-1 to Manchester United. First of all, credit where it's due. I think Roy set the team up really well, even though, like many fans, when the team selection came out, I was looking at it and thinking more of the same. But he did really well in the way he set the team up. I think we pressed much more intensely. And ultimately, I feel like we deserved at least a draw from that game. And I do lay squarely the blame for us not getting anything from that game at VAR's door and the way it was implemented. So let's get into the VAR because we have to talk about it. And you know things are bad when you find yourself agreeing with Karen Brady. And she said the other week that she thinks it should be scrapped. And I think I'm almost there now, particularly with the way it's being used. I would rather have no VAR than the way it's being implemented at the moment. And I think most fans and players would probably agree with that. And I think the main thing for me, and the person who needs to be scrutinised here, is Mike Riley, who's the general manager of referees. And I think he cannot be in place next season with the farce that he has allowed under his watch to take place this season. And it seems his colleagues agree with me. Mark Housey in January said this: "Everyone has a shelf life, and time has come for Mike Riley to step down. Implementation of VAR has been a disaster, and the buck stops with Mike." You can't really argue with that, can you? Then in comes ex-referee Keith Hackett, who describes VAR this season as embarrassing, and it was embarrassing the other night. The ridiculous lines that looked like they'd been drawn without rulers, and they drew them 3 or 4 times until they found that Jordan Ayew was offside by a toenail, even though for me it was still inconclusive. It is embarrassing. But the key line for me from Keith Hackett is when he says that we are operating VAR against the lawmakers' protocols, and he nails it for me there. We are the only country, it seems, not allowing the refs to go to the monitors. And if the referee had gone to the monitor for the penalty decision that didn't go Wilf's way, it would have needed just 1 or 2 looks for him to realise that within the rules of the game that it was a penalty. And I do think refs, and I don't blame the ref for the initial decision, the angle was difficult, but I do think refs on these 50-50 or 60-40 decisions are thinking, well, I'll lean on the side of caution, I won't give the penalty, and then if it's clear and obvious, then in Stockley Park, they will overrule me. And that is wrong. We have to let the refs, as everyone has been saying, use the video monitors. Now, next season, they are talking about changing rules, and hopefully the offside will be one where they'll look at the distance you can be offside, so we're not having decisions like that you're offside by a toenail, or like we've seen earlier in the season. Let's be very clear. If it sounds like bitterness from the other night, let's be very clear. VAR has been a problem throughout the season for a range of clubs, maybe apart from Man United. But players need to be involved in how we change the way in which VAR is being used. Fans need to be involved. Let's get the fans involved. Fans have had enough. And at the beginning of the year, we all said, even the biggest football purist would have had to have recognised, that with the money in the game and other sports using technology, VAR in some form was inevitable. But this was the form we were most afraid of. The delays, the 2-minute delays, it ruining the flow of the game. We didn't mind really, really obvious decisions being looked at, but the second, the Jordan Ayew disallowed goal is really the embodiment of what we didn't want. And that's just not speaking as a Palace fan. I'm sure most fans, and the outcry on social media the other night, wasn't just from Crystal Palace fans. It was everybody laughing at that decision. And there's been countless decisions like that. I'm happy to admit that there are decisions that have gone in our favour this season. I mean, I remember being at the Emirates earlier in the season and Arsenal had a goal that I thought was harshly disallowed. Dean Smith of Aston Villa probably feels hard done by. They had some VAR decisions at Selhurst Park that were seen quite harsh, and Aston Villa have had quite a few harsh VAR decisions. And this is my point. This is my main point, is that if somebody like Dean Smith, and I believe Aston Villa will get relegated, might be proven wrong, but I do think they will get relegated, and that in most likelihood means Dean Smith, I think, will probably lose his job at the end of the season. If his job's on the line, and let's just think about Roy the other night, starting to come under a little bit of pressure from Palace fans. What would have a win done again, or even a draw against Man United have done to sort of change that mood? If managers are paying the price, and some of them will pay the price in terms of their job, and some of them might argue that if some of these VAR decisions hadn't gone against them, or if VAR had been used properly in certain games, the outcome could have been different. If they can use that argument that it affects their job, then why should Mike Riley keep his job? It can't really have gone much worse, in my opinion, VAR. And like many other fans, I believe football has lost quite a bit of its soul. We're not really celebrating. We're waiting to celebrate now. And the soul is being slowly ebbed away from the game. It feels like watching EastEnders without the Queen Vic. So Mike Riley, sort of in the words of Peggy Mitchell, get out of our game. But let's move on. Let's move on from VAR. And this is the problem. We are talking about VAR far too much. Let's get into the game at Molineux against Wolves. Can we break this bad run? It's going to be tough. Wolves are in a battle for the Europa League. Spurs won today, so they will be doing everything to get 3 points. In terms of our lineup, there's one forced change, of course, because Patrick Van Aanholt, and we wish him the best with that injury he obtained in the game against Manchester United. Who comes in for him? Please, Tyrick have bought Roy a bottle of wine. Please let Tyrick Mitchell be starting. I think, there's arguments for really world Gyro to play based on his performance at the start of the season, but we're not going to learn anything new there. And I think one thing interesting today was the rumour, and it is a rumour, that Newcastle might be interested in Patrick Van Aanholt. Now, actually, me personally, I'm a massive fan of PVA. Arguably, he's been our best player since the restart. Some might say that's not hard, but he offers so much going forward. Is a good player, but sometimes defensively is very suspect. And I do think actually the first goal, as good as Rashford's finish and the move was, PVA sort of throwing himself to the floor, it was sort of an example of that. An offer between 10 to 20 million might tempt me for PVA. Let's see, but that would depend on whether we have a replacement. Now, let's see, maybe Tyrick Mitchell could be that replacement. Let's see. So we're not going to learn anything by playing Gyro. Let's give Mitchell a game. Let's see if he could potentially be the long-term successor to PVA. I'm not holding my breath like many Palace fans, but let's hope that we see Tyrick Mitchell at left-back. For me, that would be the only change. There's rumours that, not rumours, Roy said that Luca might be out with an injury. And I've been calling, and like many Palace fans, for Luca to be dropped. Ironically, this is a game where I'm arguing he should possibly stay in, because I think, as I mentioned earlier on in this clip, we pressed really intensely the other day, and I think the midfield three had a big part in that. So I was actually going to keep Luca within my side. So I think unless he is injured, I would keep him in. If he is injured, I'd bring Jeffrey Schlupp in. And now Jeffrey Schlupp is a player who obviously some fans like, some fans don't. He does get mixed reviews from Palace fans. For me, he is really crucial to Roy's tactical plans. I do think we have missed Jeffrey Schlupp, in particular that he helps us break on the counter quickly. And I just think his versatility in that he can be on the wing at left back, and even though he often starts in the centre, he finds himself in those positions, is very, very useful to Roy's tactical plan. So I do think he's been missed, but I would stick with Luca if he is fit. Can't believe I'm saying that after wanting him out of the team for so long, but I do think, like I said, we were much better the other night. I do think even though Luca's passing was still poor at times, he did play a big part in the intensity in our pressing, and we will need to press intensely against Wolves. Because for me, the absolute crux of us getting anything out of this game will be stopping Neves and Moutinho. I know you'll talk about Traore and Jimenez, and we'll come on to them in a moment, but Neves and Moutinho are the ones who are getting Wolves ticking. They are the ones who will be feeding those balls through for Traore and Jimenez. And if we can press them intensely, and I'm saying that phrase again, if we can not give them time on the ball to spray those passes around, then we could get something out of this game, in my opinion. What we cannot do is what we've done often since the restart is sit back too much and allow teams just to pass through us, because Neves and Moutinho will do that, and then Jimenez and Traore will make us pay. I actually feel like we are quite well set up as a team to deal with Traore. We will sit back. I don't think he'll have a lot of room to get beyond, and we almost need to do to Traore what other teams do to Wilfried Zaha, get 2 or 3 on him, not give him the time on the ball. So I think, you know, if we tactically get it right, which Roy can do on these away games, we will need to avoid errors. I said before the Leicester game that that's the sort of game that Roy tactically sets us up well for. We were 0-0 at half-time in that game. People forget that. And at half-time, I felt like that game could go either way. But then obviously we had an error from Vicente Guaita in that game. So if we cut out the errors, we're going to have to play very, very well and execute a plan tactically very well, press intensely. But we can get something out of this game. We did get a win at Molineux last season. And also, I think this is a game in which Wilfried Zaha will shine. He did well against Wolves last season, and as I said before, the Chelsea and Man United games, it is against the better teams, and Wolves are one of the better teams in the league, that Wolves plays better, because those teams are more focused on what they do well, rather than focusing on getting 2 or 3 players around Wilf and stopping him. And he finds more space, more pockets of space, and a lot of people enjoyed the role he played against Man United in the more central role, because he was able to drift left, drift right, move in the middle, and it's harder to pick him up. So hopefully he'll keep within that role. But I do think he'll get some space against Wolves, because they won't be as focused on him as other teams, in my opinion. And hopefully he can do some damage. I do believe there is a goal in this for us. But I do believe that Wolves will score 2, and that's based on Jimenez for me. He's such a clever, shrewd striker, and I do think he'll find a pocket of space at some point and will make us pay. So I'm going to go with a prediction of Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Crystal Palace 1. That's my prediction. Some might say that's overly positive with the way we've been playing recently, but that is my prediction. So I'm going with a prediction of 1-1. What do you think on my views on VAR? Should Mike Riley go? What's your prediction for the game? Please leave your comments, as always, below. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.